Oh guys, so we're continuing our tour of Regent Street. See some more kites. It's Easter weekend. Tomorrow is Easter, so a lot of these kite sales are gonna pick up today because people are gonna come shopping in the last minute to buy their kites because of course you remember that you need to buy a kite because it's too late to make one. It's gonna take too much time to make it. But this is what's happening with the kite scene and the Easter scene here at Border. Alright, this is the market on Sunday and it's commerce. It's all commerce all the time. The market is open on Sundays, I think until 10 a.m. It used to be open until 10 a.m. I don't know if that's still the case, but a lot of the shopping continues out here on the street. It is now the most commercial street. Like I said in the previous video, this street accounts for the largest volume of business in Guyana. It's the street on which most money is spent. There's a building at this intersection. This is Border Street. There was a building at this intersection that was torn down recently. Pretty sure they're going to be building something bigger and taller. That's Border Street here in Georgetown, next door to the Border Market, City Constabulary. So continuing our tour of Regent Street, and I'm showing you that in fact most of the businesses now, this is Hamid's, the second location of Hamid's. Most of the businesses now are owned by the Chinese. Chinese have moved in and bought up and turning a lot of these old buildings into retail, Chinese retail. There was in fact a Chinese restaurant in one of these buildings. This is the AME Zion Church. This is Aline's AME Zion Church. Those of you who are familiar with the Georgetown neighborhood would know that this building has been here for a long time. It's one of the fixtures here on Regent Street. But a lot of these stores now are Chinese owned, Chinese operated. I think there are just a couple of AfroGuyanese owned stores left on this street. To point out, there's a boutique in this block. This is Alexander Street. Right, this building on the corner here, this is also a Chinese general store, Chinese owned general store. That's Alexander Street. Alexander Street in Chinese. There are a couple of Chinese stores. That's Dongli. So if you can see the paint, that's Dongli. They do cell phones and stuff over there. The tall building in the background is Teleperformance. That's the telephone service, customer care service operator. This building is new. This orange and gray building is new. They've built that in the last 3 months they've completed, I suppose. And now it's, I think, a store and a warehouse. This is the other location of Kanai's over here. That's Kanai's electrical store, their second location. George Suku's. On this side, I think this building is another AfroGuyanese owned business. So that's like number 4 or 5. Very few. There's a new building going up here. As I said, the form factor of these buildings is restricted by the size of the land, and so the buildings have to be built taller just so that they could accommodate more space, enclose more space inside. But the shape is basically restricted to the land, the footprint of the building on the ground, on the land. This is the City Mall. And on the other side, it's Ariel. More kites for sale. The building on the corner here is the shopping center. I think GT&T also has a location in that building. But this is Camp Street, and that's the City Mall on Sunday. It's all closed, but you can go in there and there's a food court, and there are a number of stores on the inside of City Mall. This is the intersection with Camp Street, and at this intersection there is a Burger King that has not changed. It's been here for now about 5 years. This is Burger King restaurant. That is a bank, Republic Bank, and that's City Mall. City Mall here in Georgetown, Guyana. And this is Footsteps. They're closed on Sunday, but that's a shopping center. Now on Camp Street, there are a lot of changes going on here. Let's take a brief detour for a second, show you that here on Camp Street there is a... So there are these buildings that we know. Right, that's the new... or the Burger King is 5 years old. There's a building, there was a fire in this building, but there's a barber shop and some beauty supplies there. This is another Chinese owned store. This is a hardware store that does some printing. This is a Christian Mission store behind here. What I want to show you in this brief detour is that there's this building. It's supposed to be a office tower, office building, to rent office space. So a lot of new companies are moving in. But here's Thai Express. So Thai Express is new. This is probably about a month or two old now. They've opened about a month ago. It's a new restaurant here at the corner of Robb Street and Camp Street. Just wanted to make that brief detour. Remember this building? At one point this was the only building in Guyana where you could use US currency during those years when we had all the banned and restricted items. That building I think was owned by Mrs. Burnham, or one of the Burnhams, and let's take a look at it again. That building was owned by Viola Burnham, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if my memory is correct. But that was the building where you could shop at one point, where you could shop with US dollars, the only building. Now there is a bank on the ground floor, and I don't know what's inside. But let's back to Regent Street. And what I'm doing is showing you how Regent Street has changed, right? How this Regent Street has changed and it's become a lot more Chinese in its commercial operations. So a lot of the buildings on Regent Street are now owned and operated by Chinese. It's good to make that detour because it gives me a chance to show you City Mall again from a distance. It's too close because the street is so narrow, it's difficult to see with any perspective unless you step off the street what's really happening. So this is the Footsteps mega store, and it's actually quite big in terms of scale. That's Burger King and some more kites for sale. This is Venus Footwear, and this line of buildings, oh, there's Pizza Hut over here, Pizza Hut, Pagels and Sons, there's MoneyGram and a few money changing stores on this side, and on the south side that's GBTI, that is the Regent Street location for the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry, owned by the Bihari Group, and Kirpalanis. But this tall building is supposed to be a mall. It's been being built for the last 5 years, but I think it's coming to completion. It's been enclosed now. Let me see, I don't remember what the name, I don't know how to pronounce this name, but that is the name of the mall. And it's almost, at least on the outside, I guess, completed. There's still a lot of scaffolding. Next door to it, on the other side, there is this new building There was a fire here a few months ago, like a year ago, and now there's this new building. It's a store on the ground floor, but it seems to be also some storage space or some living spaces. So this is what's happening here in the center of Regent Street. For this 7-story building that is supposed to be a mall, people have said that there's not enough parking to accommodate the traffic, but apparently they plan to use the space next door for a parking lot. So we'll see what happens when it's completed, how it works. But this mall may also own the lot next door. This is that mall, infamous mall, where the phone operator, the phone repair store guy, refused to show me the footage of the thieves who stole my last iPhone. This is Guyol gas station here. Guyana is now oil producing country, and you'd expect that eventually will have an impact on gas, but not yet. But this is middle of Regent Street. Now we're heading towards the end, and like I said, there are only four Afro-Guyanese businesses that we've passed so far. The last one down the block here is Pressie's Photo Studio, almost opposite the City Hall, obliquely opposite the City Hall. That is the last black owned or Afro-Guyanese owned store. This is Wellington Street on a Sunday. Regent and Wellington Street. That's the gas station looking back up Regent Street. That's the new mall. As you can see, it's not yet occupied, although the outside has been enclosed. That's Wellington Street looking south. Now on a weekday, you wouldn't be able to even walk on this street because of course it's so crowded and so busy. So because it's one of the busiest streets, both in terms of traffic but also in terms of commerce. I believe that this street, Regent Street, is still the street on which most money is spent in Guyana, but it hasn't changed in its physical structure. It's a narrow street built in colonial times when all the traffic was mostly, I guess, horse-drawn vehicles, and they mimicked whatever was happening in Europe and in the US and the UK at the time. It's not like the US where the roads and the streets are wide, so this is particularly narrow. But all of these stores, all of these commercial stores are now owned either by Chinese or Indo-Guyanese, and most of the Afro-Guyanese have been moved off of Regent Street. So a lot of the commerce here, a lot of the sales on Regent Street no longer involves Afro-Guyanese businesses, and that's the point. That's one of the major points I'm making in these couple of videos about Regent Street. I'll do the same on Robb Street in a future video, but showing you what's happening in Regent Street now is to show you that Regent Street is becoming a lot more like Canal Street in Chinatown. And Canal Street in Chinatown, for those of you who are familiar with New York and Manhattan, is in fact the center, the heart of Chinatown in Manhattan, where you can find a lot of cheap merchandise and a large volume of Chinese merchants. So that's what's happening here. We're approaching King Street and towards the end of Regent Street, and what I believe is the last business owned by Afro-Guyanese. That's Pressie's Photo Studio, coming up in the next block. But this is King Street. At the end, that's the north end of King Street. You can see that's the St. George's Cathedral. Right, that's the St. George's Cathedral at the end of King Street. And to the south, I think that's Manjit Place. But these are also Chinese owned stores. A lot of these stores are now owned by and operated by Chinese. You'll be surprised if you come back here in the daytime and see all of these businesses being run and operated by Chinese. This one is Sun Fa Clothing, another Chinese owned store. I think behind this used to be Agfa Photo Studio, so they've sold out the front end of this building to the Chinese. And behind this tall pink building, right in the passageway at the back, that's where you have Pressy's Photo Studio, and that's the last black one. Let's see if take a look at what is happening here. So Pressy's, morning. There you go. See Pressy's, and Pressy's is located here in this mall here at the back, and that's in fact the last own. I think it's number 7 here when we were doing the count. Pressy's gift store. All right, they're located here in this little mall, this little shopping center here on Regent Street. That's the last owned Afro-Guyanese store on Regent Street. So that's what's up, guys. That's what's happening here in Georgetown. This is the City Hall, as you can see. Showed you recently the renovations happening here in City Hall. That's looking back at Regent Street, where we've come from Camp Street to the intersection with Camp Street to now the intersection with Republic Avenue. That's the Bank of Baroda, Indian Bank in Guyana. On this side, this is where you buy your tickets for Caribbean Airlines, the Caribbean Airlines building. Here, their travel agents are in that building. And that's their sign. So this is it, guys. This is Regent Street. It runs for another block over to the mall, ends at that mall. But that's it. That's City Hall. Under renovation. The renovations are still taking place. But I think it's going to be a while before they complete it. And this is, we're crossing over Republic Avenue to take a look north towards the National Library. So behind that sign is the National Library. At the north end, we're on Regent Street and taking a look at the south. Towards the south, there is the courts, right? The High Court, the Magistrates, Georgetown Magistrates Court, the Supreme Court. And over here is City Hall. So that's it, guys. That's what's happening here on Regent Street in Georgetown, Guyana. As I can say, the changes are going rapidly and drastically. Regent Street is now like Canal Street in downtown Manhattan. It's much more of a Chinatown than what it used to be. So if you remember Regent Street from back in the 1970s and the 1980s and the 1990s, that is not what it is now. That's the south end of Republic Avenue. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. In the comments below, tell me what you think of the new Regent Street as it changes, as Guyana goes through a rapid economic expansion. And I want to bring you the changes, how the city is changes, how development is impacting some of the major communities, neighborhoods, and shopping centers, commercial districts in Guyana. I'll bring you more of these videos in future on some of the streets and how they're changing. You see new hotels going up, new renovation and expansion in most of the city, in fact all sections of the city. And we want to keep track of that and record it so that you can keep abreast of what's happening here in Georgetown, Guyana. Share this video with friends and family around the world. There's a carpenter's wanted sign here. Apparently they need people who can do woodwork because these old colonial buildings require a lot of woodwork and ironwork, wrought ironwork, and those skills are no longer available. So if you're a carpenter and you want to work on this building, I guess you can contact City Hall. That's what's up, guys. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening here in Georgetown, Guyana, and on Regent Street. Later.